here with at CPAC Mexico with the president of Mis amigos migrantes, pues aquí estoy.
Total catastrophe, and it is a crisis.
Of a child, right there. All these NGOs, you're fake. It is this, the crisis of children.
There we go. We had it on mute. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for joining in. I'm Oscar Blue for Real America's Voice News. We are live. Today is Tuesday, March 4th of the year 2025. We are touching every day on these delicate topics. I haven't been talking about these topics for many years, for more than 8 to 9 years, because of the level of insecurity that we live in our city, and it is getting extremely dangerous. I will get to that. Lastly, another journalist was assassinated over here in the city of Tijuana, in the city of the state of Guanajuato. Mexico is number 3 for assassinations towards journalists. Also, it is an extreme dangerous place to practice our profession and our journalism. It has gotten like this for so many years, and it's getting worse. But we need to, talk about these topics because this is extremely important for everybody. Extremely important that, extremely important for everybody to know that the next war that is going to happen, and possibly is going to be a war that is already is a war. It is in Mexico with the organized crime and the cartel. Now, let's get right into it. Is the Trump administration causing fear to the cartel? This is an article that it was posted about the New York Times, which I believe that, it has something behind it. I believe that the New York Times, and I know a lot of people that work for the New York Times, they're incredible journalists, but I believe that this article was released with the incline to basically buy some time for the Mexican president, for her to reform the Constitution, for her to buy some time as she is reforming the Constitution to protect the sovereign nation of Mexico, quote unquote, and for her to only designate the cartels as terrorists and to not let anybody intervene and to push her into a corner so she will feel the pressure to be designating these organized groups as terrorists. Now, I don't know where the New York Times has been living, but according to the New York Times, it is affirming that the Sinaloa cartel, it is running away from fear from the Trump administration, which I believe that is an inaccurate statement. Why? The war, just for the New York Times, the war in Culiacan is still going on. The insecurity in Michoacan and Guerrero is still going on. The kingpins and drug lords are still in charge of the enormous part of the states in Mexico. Just a week ago, there were 2 human heads. They were found in the city of Tijuana, and I will post about that article. One of them was directed to a famous group and singer that is well known and Latin Grammy award-winning group. I don't know where they're getting their factual, information, and I don't know where they're actually getting this 100% for them accurate information to be releasing. But the only thing that they're doing with this article, and I will, with all respect to for the people in the New York Times, what you're doing with this article, it is basically enticing and incentivizing the cartel to be aggressive to Mexican authorities, because you're basically calling them cowards. and you're telling them that they're afraid and they're running away from fear from the Trump administration. So what you are provoking is a matter of retaliation for the Mexican authorities and also for the authorities of the United States of America. Let's read the article. It says the New York Times, Trump treats threats and Mexico crackdown hit Mexican cartel. Several cartel operatives said that for the first time in years, they genuinely feared the arrest and death in the hands of the authorities. Then the article goes and says, one cartel leader says he's trying to figure it out how to protect his family in case the American military strikes inside of Mexico. So you're pandering to a cartel leader. This is the amazing thing. Where are the stories of the hundreds of thousands that they have lost their lives because of the cartel? This is the thing that I really, grotesquely detest. There are hundreds of thousands of Mexicans being displaced and being replaced by the Mexican cartel in the parts of Guerrero and the parts of Michoacan. And there's a lot of them that they're not going out. It's just like, it's almost like martial law in Culiacan, just for you to understand. It's so dangerous right now in Culiacan for the cartel to operate, freely in the state of Culiacan. I do not understand, but you're pandering to a story of a cartel leader, and you're saying that one cartel leader says that he's trying to figure it out how to protect his family in case the American military strikes inside of Mexico. I'm sorry, but these cartel leaders have been, I don't know if you heard this, New York Times, but the cartel leaders have been taking away lives, decapitating and dismembering bodies, and also contaminating the country of Mexico with fentanyl and synthetic drugs, and also massively trafficking fentanyl into the United States of America. I don't know which side you're pandering, but this is incredible. And then you say another one says that he's already gone into hiding, rarely leaving his home. Two young men who produce fentanyl for the cartel say they have shut down all their drug labs. If this is a reality, man, I'm just saying, if this is a reality, for God's sake, I don't know. I haven't seen no big drug bust. The largest drug bust of fentanyl that has happened around 3 to 4 months ago, that it was the largest drug bust of fentanyl, and it was because they initiated the 25% tariff. All of this comes down to the 25% tariff and the president of Mexico not naming the cartels as terrorists. All of this comes down to this. The Mexican president of Mexico is trying to reform the Constitution, people. The New York Times is trying to buy some time also for the Mexican government. The actual cartel are the ones that they're in Congress, are the ones that they're in the Senate. They're the ones that they wear the tie, the cuello blanco. That's the one. That's the one that is actually not getting displaced. That's the one that is actually being hit in the pockets. These are the organized crime, and the operatives are the ones that they do the dirty job. But the ones that they're getting hit in the pockets, that's the one that the Mexican president is trying to protect. And she's trying to change the Constitution to buy some time to reform the Constitution for her to get the approval on the Senate, for nobody to intervene over here and to be pushed and to be push and push and push to name these cartels as terrorists. She deployed more than 10,000 National Guardsmen into the borders with Mexico, with the United States. She deployed, right? And all this deployment of these National Guardsmen was to decrease the level of trafficking of fentanyl to the vehicle ports of entry, because a lot of people do not understand. A lot of the American population does not understand. Where the more trafficking of fentanyl occurs, it is in the vehicle ports of entry. It's not through the mountains where the open border gaps. No, you see the trafficking of humans over there. But ultimately, what you guys have seen through my reporting during the week, the National Guardsmen of Mexico have been also deployed to the mountains in the east side of the parts of Tijuana. The state of Baja California is the state that has been receiving more deployed National Guardsmen so they can protect these open border gaps. And also they put an inspection point, which you guys have seen my reporting, that this inspection point has been put before the United States Customs vehicle port of entry. So they put an inspection, the National Guard of Mexico put an inspection point to prevent, and to also do random inspections before the vehicles cross to the United States port of entry, which it tells you that, they're trying to do something. Now, I will tell you, in the terms to the level of trafficking of humans, it has decreased. Yes, massively. You guys have seen the numbers, 8,000 some fraction of, in exchange and in comparison in the context with the Biden administration, which it was 72,000, in the first trimester or in the first month or something like that. And every month, 72,000 in a month. And in the Trump administration, you're talking about 8,000 plus fraction. It was like 8,200 migrants that they cross illegally. It's a huge downfall. It's a huge low blow to the cartels in Colombia, which we have been in there, being that I'm, that we were the only journalists that we have crossed the Darien Gap 4 times, Ben Berquam and myself, documented the cartel, how they were operating in Colombia. It's a huge low blow for them, huge low blow for the NGOs, that they were profiting out of the human misery, huge low blow for these mom and pop businesses, which they were making tons and tons and hundreds of thousands of dollars every week out of this human misery. It's a huge low blow for every cartel that it was operating in the south of the border of Mexico. Huge low blow for the cartel that it was operating between Guatemala and Mexico, which I'm going to touch on that there was a recent organized ring of trafficking that they just found in LA. And I will, I will enlighten people what happened with that. Huge low blow with everything. But right now, we're seeing that the Mexican president with the New York Times, what the hell, New York Times, where do you live? People that actually live in Culiacan, they're actually afraid for their lives right now. It's not the same. I don't know, where do you live? Really, I don't know where you think you live. This is actually actual video of, of a recent operations and the violence in Culiacan. Everything has escalated due to the war between los Mayitos and los Chapitos, due to Ovidio Guzman, and the other brother of Ovidio Guzman from the other marriage of El Chapo Guzman, basically kidnapping El Mayo Zambada and delivering to the authorities. Where do you live, New York Times? Really, I'm not challenging you, but I'm asking you, like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is not a reality. The Mexico still living the current violence and the current insecurity in our country. Massive operandi you see right here in South America, Mexico, and Europe. Let me just return this video. It's extremely important for you guys to see how the cartel has expanded. And for you to bluntly say that they're being afraid of the Trump administration, híjole, I really do not understand. How do you get this reference? Because let me just press this video. How they have massively, I moved a little bit. How they have massively moved from Europe, also South America, all the way to Asia. That's how humongous they have grown. And for people to just say they are running away from the Trump administration, it is basically challenging the cartel to say, oh, you think that we're running? Oh, so let me just show you that we're not. They're not just operating to North America. That's the number one, demand in the United States of America, where they're making hundreds of thousands and millions, billions of dollars. But also they're smuggling to South America, they're smuggling to Europe, and they're smuggling to Asia, which that is their other market, incredible other market. But it's just, for me, it's unbelievable to say, you know what, they are actually running away. They're actually not, they're being threatened now. For me, it is just like a smokescreen that is being created for the cartels, to make the population think, oh, you know what, they're running away from fear. They are now running away. So please stop threatening them. Stop naming them as terrorists. Now they're going against them. Now they're going after them. It is kind of like pandering to Claudia Sheinbaum and the Morena administration for them to buy some time and reform the Constitution. And after they reform the Constitution, they will actually, nobody can intervene in the sovereign nation of Mexico to name these cartels and to name these people as terrorists. So for me, it is unbelievable and incredible that is being pandered, and they're pandering to some stories of fentanyl, creators and all this kind of stuff. But let me just, let's read the article right here. It's incredible for you guys to understand. Mexico's president calls for constitutional reform to protect the nation's sovereignty. And on the bottom it says, on Thursday, past Thursday, she would propose the constitutional reform to protect her country's sovereignty after the administration of the U.S. President Donald Trump designated 8 Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The Mexican people will not accept the Mexican people. She's just generally speaking for everybody. She's not speaking for millions of people, but she's saying that she is. The Mexican people will not accept under any circumstances interventions or interference or any other act from abroad that could be harmful for the integrity and independence and sovereignty of the nation. So she's willing to reform the Constitution just to protect the cartels from not being named as terrorists and using the justification of the sovereignty of Mexico. It's incredible. It's just, for me, it is unbelievable. And, you know, now that the New York Times have released this, apparently this article that says that the cartels, they're running away and they're being dismantled and they're being afraid and they're, you know, basically hiding now. Come on. I don't really believe that. And Mexico people, we do not believe exceptionally that is being something that is being done, because we're actually seeing that the war in Culiacan, it is still continuing and it is not going away. And let me just touch on something right here, and let me just put this on stage right here for you to understand how this whole modus operandi, if you see right here on the right-hand side, and I will press play right now, on the left side, you will see the ones that they're leading the Sinaloa cartel. That is Ivan Archibaldo Guzman and Jesus Guzman Salazar, that they're from the first marriage of Joaquin Guzman Loera, El Chapo. Then the second brothers are Ovidio Guzman, which is detained, and also Joaquin Guzman Lopez, which is the one that basically made El Mayo Zambada think that he was going to go on some trip and something and got kidnapped, and also was delivered to the American authorities. And now El Mayo Guzman is the one that is basically detained and is extremely pissed off because he was set up. And now he is detained in the United States of America. This is the guy that is making the Mexican government tremble. This is the guy that is making, basically, this guy right here, this guy on the right, is the guy that is making the Mexican government tremble and all dirty politicians tremble. This guy, because he sent a letter just recently from the President of the United States of America. He said, if you don't extradite me to Mexico, I will create a destabilization between the United States and Mexico relations. It's incredible. This is how in the hell he has so much power. And after he sent this letter, immediately the Mexican president sent 26 of the most wanted narco terrorists into the United States of America. Under those terrorists, Carlos, Rafael Caro Quintero, one of the kingpin that started all of this, was delivered. Zeta 40, the creator of the Zetas, was delivered. So many other, leaders and sicarios, and also people that they have assassinated, American agents, also were delivered to the United States of America. This was like, here you go. Tell them to stop talking. Tell them to please stop. Here you go. Just slow down. Try to buy some time to reform the Constitution. For me to reform the Constitution, and for me to basically, like here says, try to protect the sovereign nation. Try to protect these people from not naming them as terrorists. So I just gotta be honest. I don't know where the New York Times is getting that they're afraid. They get a couple of stories. I don't know if they possibly New York Times, for them, are legitimate stories. This just recently happened over here. Latin Grammy, and this for the New York Times. I don't know, you guys, if it is on the New York Post, you guys possibly seen it. Latin Grammy winning band cancels concerts after severe head found alleged cartel threats. This is Edwin Cas. It is a famous singer of the famous band Grupo Firme, and he's from Tijuana. And I just told you, that in the last weeks in the city of Tijuana, they have been found 2 human heads One of them in a famous boulevard in a box. The other one that it was a threat for them, it was found in a container box in the east side of the city. This is a reality. So I don't know how they are de-escalating the violence. I don't know how, it is de-escalating the power. I don't see de-escalating nothing. And if you go also right now to which is the most, dangerous city right now of the world. This is a 2025 list. I'm just reading facts. Right here, look. Which is the number one? And it says the number one most dangerous city in the world, it is Tijuana. Again, Tijuana, it is basically on the top list. Although the crime rate, apparently, in the percentage, if you go by percentage, in the past, the crime rate has slowed down. It has decreased, but still, it is the most dangerous city in the world. Still, it is the most dangerous city in the world. So it tells you, I want to know where does the, New York Times get the trifecta to say, the cartel that is running away from fear because of the Trump administration. When the level of fentanyl has not decreased, it's basically I don't know, you're stumbling upon yourself because you're saying that the cartel is running away from the Trump administration, or the Trump administration is just, hitting them in the pockets when the level of fentanyl has not decreased of trafficking into the United States of America. That is the number one reason why. And another reason is the 25% tariff went into effect. That it has to do a lot with the automobile industry and the automobile industry being the most lucrative industry in the world. Trump wants to bring the automobile industry back into the United States of America. He wants to bring Ford. He wants to bring Chevrolet. He wants to bring Mazda. Honda already changed their perspective. I mean, they're going back to the United States of America. Apple, it is going back to the United States of America. You have a lot of companies that they want to go back to the United States of America. This is a huge low blow to the automobile industry, to the exporting of vehicles into the United States of America. It's a huge low blow for them. So it's basically, if they're using the fentanyl excuse to, or a fentanyl, story to basically execute the 25% tariff, it is working. And ultimately, it's a domino effect, because now you got to lower down and forcing Mexico to crack down, the fentanyl use. It's basically doing that. And the fentanyl trafficking, enormous fentanyl trafficking, which is happening, which we know that is the actual genocide inside of the United States of America, which it is sounding, and it is basically causing a lot of harm to the United States. 107,000 Americans being assassinated through the use of fentanyl and abuse. That is the number one reason why. So I believe strongly that, this comment of saying that the cartels are running away or they are afraid because of the Trump administration, it is debatable. I would like to see more evidence about that. Why? Because we're seeing that the level of violence in Mexico is not decreasing, it is increasing. And also the level of trafficking of fentanyl, it is not, decreasing, it is increasing. So I really do not believe that it's decreasing. I think that is increasing, and actually this kind of articles being also put out there by the New York Times, which is a outlet that is big in the world. It basically incentivizes and it challenges the cartel to show you, we're not afraid of the Trump administration. What are you talking about? So it provokes some kind of violence, and it provokes some kind of animosity, more animosity. And I don't understand if that is going to be a good effect or a bad effect. And I don't really do not understand if it is going to be a good effect or a bad effect. But the only thing that I can tell you is that they're saying that, basically the cartels are running away from Trump. I don't believe that is actually happening. I believe that they're hitting them in the pockets. Yes, they are. They're hitting them in the pockets. Yes, they are. And massively. And I will tell you why. The number one reason why is because the level of trafficking of humans has decreased enormously. Enormously. Just yesterday, an alleged Guatemalan human trafficking ring was detained. So this is the guy that it was detained, smuggling people from Guatemala all the way to the United States of America. Around 20,000 migrants he smuggled. 4 people were detained. They're talking about 4. 2 of them were detained. This is one of the guys that it was detained. And it is incredible now that he was detained immediately. This is the domino effect that I'm talking to you about. That immediately when something happens and they're decreasing and the United States is trying to do something to stop this mass illegal activities with Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and Donald Trump, immediately the other governments start seeing that and they start deploying their National Guard or their soldiers. The Guatemalan government is trying to do something. And I'm telling you, they are really trying to do something. They just deployed one of the most vicious and active soldiers units that is called Los Caibiles. They just deployed them to the Guatemala-Mexico border on an operation to decrease the level of trafficking of drugs and decrease the level of trafficking of humans. And this is one of the guys that it was doing this. He got stopped in LA. So the article says right here, it was from Fox News. This article, federal agents arrested 2 Guatemalan men on Friday accused of operating one of the largest human smuggling operations in the United States. The 2 were picked up near downtown in Los Angeles and are accused of moving 20,000 illegal immigrants into the United States of America from Guatemala since 2019. Eduardo Domingo Renoch Matul and Cristobal Mejia Shach each appeared in federal court hours after their arrest, and a judge ordered each held without bond. If convicted, they could face the death penalty. Why the death penalty? Let me just tell you why. And before I go into the video, the death penalty, it is because of the crimes that they committed to the migrants. What are the crimes that they committed to the migrants? The crimes that we have been documenting for so many years and we have been showing to all of you. Which are these crimes? So what they do, and we have documented this since 2017, 2018. They smuggled the migrants from Guatemala to Mexico. This is the organized crime in the cartel. They have all control. You guys have seen me in the borders between Guatemala and Mexico crossing on a water raft and doing all this kind of stuff, right? So they smuggle them. The organized crime controls that part. The last time that I was in Tapachula, I shown you in migrants with statements that were telling me there would be an extortion, $300, $400 for just to cross on a water raft. But what they do is they tell them, hey, you know what? I will cross you to Mexico, but you got to go to this warehouse. And on this warehouse, they kidnap them for several days, sometimes weeks. And they extortion them. This happens in Necoclí, Colombia. This happens in the Darien Gap. This happens everywhere. This is a mode operandi. This happens at the borders with Mexico and the United States. The trafficker tells you it's going to be 2,000, and you pay me in the wall before I cross you. Then when they go to the wall, they tell you it's not going to be 2,000. This is the app. Call your family members and tell them that it's going to be 10,000. If not, you are just, goodbye. I'm going to take your life away. And I'm not joking. And they have done that so many times. They have found mass graves in the part of Algodones next to the border with Arizona and Yuma. So what these guys were doing, the same operandi that they were doing between the borders in Mexico and Guatemala, they were doing the same operandi in Los Angeles, for God's sake. So they were moving people all the way to Los Angeles, getting them on this warehouse, extortioning them, kidnapping them, asking for more money, hurting them, abusing them. These were vicious smugglers and traffickers, man. This is number one reason why they're trying to get the death penalty. And on this video, it is kind of like where it shows where they were found. Also, the prosecutor, it tells you how is the sentence going to go. And also on the last part, I want to show you how the Guatemala government, after this, it is getting really tough on their border. This is incredible. And I will do a report in the next incoming hours about this. Because of the trafficking ring that it just was discovered, they were planning to do this, but now they're reinforcing more their mode operandi in their borders between Guatemala and Mexico. Why? Because they want to tackle all these smuggling and all this trafficking, and they want to pivot the same attitude as, Guatemala agenda first, as America first, into their own country. They're seeing that this is working in the United States of America to tackle illegal migration, to tackle all these trafficking rings, and to tackle the massive trafficking of drugs. They're seeing that ideology is working, so they want to copy paste that and put it in their country, which is incredible. I said many times before, the United States is the example of law and order of the world, and we need to understand that actually, when they start doing it, everybody else starts doing it. This is the video of where they were hiding them, where they were taking them, where they were punishing them, the migrants, and these kind of warehouses, better known as galleras. In the last part, I will pause this video so I can show you a place that we discovered when I was in Tapachula, a gallera, a warehouse, where they were actually kidnapping the migrants and extortioning them before releasing them and telling them you can go.
Of the 4 ringleaders of this massive human smuggling operation were arrested locally right here in Los Angeles, and that this smuggling operation spanned multiple countries, smuggled tens of thousands of people into the United States, and
to announce an indictment charging 4 defendants with operating one of the largest human smuggling rings in the nation. The indictment alleges a transnational criminal organization smuggled approximately 20,000 illegal immigrants from Guatemala to the United States via Mexico, and then transported these aliens to cities throughout the United States. They held individuals smuggled hostage for months, threatened them and their family members with violence, and others, including children, were killed in a horrific car crash in Oklahoma in 2023. The indictment charges 4 defendants, all of whom are illegal aliens from Guatemala who committed crimes while living in the United States. Each defendant faces up to life imprisonment and the possibility of the death penalty.
Now, after that, this is the Caiviles. Which is Los Caiviles? This is the Guatemalan military. This happened yesterday. The Guatemalan military doing their job. These brave men that were deployed to the border with Mexico also with Guatemala. They were deployed to do an operation and to tackle now illegal migration and trafficking of drugs from Guatemala to Mexico. This is enormous, people, because the United States is being a pivot and an example to push other countries in a triangle, in a domino effect, for them to say, hey, we're doing something. Now is your turn. Now is your turn. Now is your turn. As they are being deployed, basically secure several areas and to tackle all these trafficking rings and these bad people, which they are doing so much harm, not only in their country, but ultimately also in other countries. This is the border between Talisman and Tapachula. Have been to this border. And as you see, they have the Humvees, they got their tactical vehicles, they have the high artillery guns on the top of the vehicles. This is not a joke. Now, I'm saying that it's not a joke because the United States, and I pushed this video the other day, the National Guard, it has already been deployed to the wall into the border between Mexico and the United States, and it is being deployed to just put concertina wire between the 2 border walls to support the National Guard of Mexico to try to prevent this latter cartel, which is operating, jumping migrants from one side to the other, and to just tackle them and to make it more difficult for them to try to do that, specifically to continue to do that. Now you're seeing this right here. You're seeing this, that the Guatemala government, it is actually now trying to tackle the illegal migration, the trafficking rings, and sending mode operandi into their borders with Mexico, which I believe that is incredible. It is phenomenal. Now, let us go. This picture that it was here, I arrived a little bit late to this particular area and location. This was one of my trips to Tapachula, Chiapas. This right here that you see is all the amount of people that they were kidnapped by a Guatemalan cartel that was operating also in Mexico, which all of these migrants were sent into this particular warehouses that are called galleras. And this situation, it is exactly the copy paste that just happened on this large trafficking ring that it was discovered in LA, which is the same modus operandi as copy paste of what they were doing. So if for me, it looks like it's possibly the same people that they were operating on this trafficking ring. These are the warehouses that they were using. Now, if you look right here, it's kind of like they use houses, they use these kind of warehouses so they can stash people and they can actually try to hide them, and a place where they can get extortion, a place where they can get aggressively, attacked the migrants and basically extortion for more money, as possibly they were being charged a small quantity to just be released into the United States, but later on they get charged hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be released. Isn't it unbelievable? So these two things, huge news that is happening, around the country, not only in Mexico, the United States, but also, in the parts of Guatemala and also in LA, that this trafficking ring was just discovered. More than 20,000. Lord, man, my God, talking about a huge amount of people, huge amount of quantity, and this is one trafficking ring that it was discovered. You're talking about millions of people that they crossed, undocumented into the United States of America. It tells you that this is just one small one of 20,000 of millions of people that they were crossing undocumented into the United States. You have a lot of people that they did the CBP-1 app. For the Biden administration, that was legal. And people were actually doing the appointment, and they were going to the line, and there was a lot of hundreds of thousands of people that they used lawyers to get their political asylum or refugee case into the United States of America legally. And also, you had the other side that it was, I don't want to wait. I just want to cross illegally, and I will get to the United States whether they like it or not. I will get over there, and I will try to get over there as soon as and fast as that I can. And that's about it. So that's, one of the incredible things about, discovering this. It goes to the profound manufacturing of this operandi, how a lot of people, when we started going to South America, we started seeing the wow. We started seeing the wow thing. When we arrived to the borders with Colombia and Venezuela, we were like, wow, this is where it starts. And then we went to Necoclí, where they use these tourist packages to pay so they can be trafficked into the Darien Gap and all the market and all the mom and pop businesses and all the hotels profiting of illegal migration, and this under Biden. And you're like, wow. Then you go inside of the Darien and you see the suffering, you see the rape, you see the abuse, you see the life and death situations, you see the malaria, you see the dengue, you see the children dying, you see the decomposed bodies, you see the multiple mudslides, you see the difficulties, and you're like, wow. Then you go to Central America and you're like Costa Rica. You go to the smuggling in Costa Rica, Honduras, the borders with Guatemala, Nicaragua, and you're like, more wow. Then you go to how everything is tied together. It's a mechanism. Everything is specifically, perfectly done. Guatemala to Mexico, being trafficked and being put on these warehouses like these guys were doing. And we saw that and we documented, and you're like, more wow. Then you go in the caravan and you're like, oh, this is how it is being manufactured. This is how it constructs. This is how it's being built. It has a purpose. You got good people. You got bad people. You got vulnerable people. You got people that they're carrying backpackers, that they're looking kind of weird. You got the typical guy that is just being, really quiet and not talking too much. You're like, more wow. Then you get to the borders with Mexico and the United States and you're like, holy moly, man. Same people that they were down there, same people that they're up here, and you're like, whoa. It's the same mode operandi. It's just unbelievable. Incredible. And now I made a video that I will post this video right here. Let me just send this video right here so we can see it. I posted this video on my account on X. And let me see where it's at so I can give it to you guys. So I can post it for you guys right here. And I can post for you guys right here. Let me see where it's at. I apologize for taking a little time. Here we go. There we go. Here we go. Here we go. Let me just hold on a minute, people. Thank you so much for having the patience. Before I jump into the last topic, which is, I think that is extremely important for everybody to understand. And why am I saying that the Trump effect that is so, it's how it's causing right now the Trump effect to Guatemala, and how the Trump effect that is affecting now Mexico, the Mexican government, basically exposing the Mexican government, and the Mexican government coming afloat, not naming the cartels as terrorists, which is for me, it is just unbelievable. You know, it's just incredible how now you need to reform the Constitution, and you want to reform the Constitution because you want to stop other people from naming them terrorists, because you're using the justification that they're going to invade your country. This is our report from what has happened in the Darien Gap. Look how this has completely changed. This is unfreaking believable. 97% of the flow has slowed down inside of the Darien Gap. Well, there you have it. 97%. 97%. It has decreased the level of flow inside of the Darien Gap. Unbelievable. 97%. You know, Ben Berquam and myself, we crossed this dangerous jungle 4 times. It is the most dangerous pathway for migrants. On the 3rd time that we went in there, there's a migrant camp that is called Lajas Blancas. We saw an overflow between 7,000 and 10,000 migrants that day. And then we did the Emburse route, trying to walk inside of the Darien jungle. On the 3rd time, we saw between 2,000 to 2,500 migrants per day coming down from the Death Mountain into the middle parts of the Darien Gap. Unbelievable. This is a huge low blow by the Trump administration to the organized crime and the cartel in Colombia, and particularly to the pop businesses that were living out of this humanitarian crisis and this human suffering, selling their little stoves, selling their boots, selling their little camping spots, selling all of this stuff, making money out of human suffering. Ultimately, also to the NGOs, huge low blow to them, making money out of human suffering and living out of this humanitarian crisis. But ultimately, and lastly, to the organized crime in Colombia. This is a huge low blow. The Trump administration hit them right there in the pockets. 97% it has decreased the level of flow inside of the Darien Gap. It is clearly unbelievable. I will tell you something. If they tell me, hey, Oscar, you want to do the route again, I will be a little bit more precautious going into the jungle with nobody in there than when we went in there, seeing people between 2,000 and 2,500 per day. Now, that was shocking, seeing people that they were losing their lives, decomposed bodies, children drowning, children suffering, women being raped and abused. Thank God that is over. Thank God that is 97% that it has decreased. The Trump administration closing the Darien Gap, but also saving lives from dying and saving lives from being abused and raped and saving children. So that was our report, and I posted that video on X. If you guys want to go on X and share it, there it is. So you know, it's the new administration, which we have talked about in the past. I just got to tell you, these restrictions have an enormous domino effect on the whole continent and the world. And these restrictions from the Trump administration, securing the border and pushing other countries with the threat of a tariff, it is inevitably is the number one effect. And now you're seeing it in the Darien Gap. 97%. We crossed that Darien 4 times. It is so incredibly dangerous, that place. Well, I got sick 2 times with malaria, 1 time with dengue. It's so dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. We got into a gunfight also with the heroic agents of Panama combating the organized crime of Colombia in a gunfight. It's so freaking dangerous. And now it has decreased. And all these NGOs are being hit in the pockets, specifically OIM, that is the procreator of the Global Compact on Migration, the main international disaster of migration that is now OIM. It is pretty strong in the parts of Europe. You're seeing the disaster that is causing in Spain, in France, in the UK, other countries, also Romania. This disaster is moving again back to Europe, where it started. The United Nations is being extremely infiltrated in Europe. They're infiltrated in Europe, massively infiltrated in Europe. But now that Trump has put this restriction, it pushes away the UN, the OIMs, the UNHCRs. In Canada also, with Trudeau leaving, and possibly the Conservative Party coming afloat, it is going to completely change the bilateral relations between Mexico and the United States in the Treaty of Temec. It's completely going to change. I wanted to jump on a topic real quick. And I was asked yesterday about this. I posted this, and this is a huge reality that is happening in our country of Mexico. Another journalist killed in Mexico. Here's how the deaths are counted. Mexico authorities were investigating the killing of a local reporter Monday in central state of Guanajuato, the country's homicide leader. The state prosecutor office identified the victim only by the first name, but local media outlets said that it was Cristian Zavala, who covered local goings on the city of Silao on his Facebook page. Zavala and another person were killed on Sunday, according to the office. It was the 3rd killing of the media worker so far this year, though it remained unclear of the motive was connected to his work. The U.S.-based Committee to Protect Journalists in Mexico chapter in Article 19 demanded a thorough investigation. For years, Mexico has been one of the world's most dangerous countries outside a war zone for journalists. How journalist killings are counted. Now Mexico had its deadliest year for journalists in 2022 with 13 killings. According to CPJ and Article 19 in 2023, 2024, that fell to half over fewer, but non-lethal attacks shoot up. A lot of people have questioned me this narrative if I feel safe in speaking about these topics. And I'll be honest with you, no. The continuous death threats have continued. And we have now taken more actions into precaution, into document these death threats, comments, social media death threats. Everything is being documented. We have taken this decision after the death threat that we received, that they tried to get me killed on 2019, a progressive mercenary activist, writing a hit piece on MSNBC, Democracy Now!, and all these leftist networks, trying to get me killed over here, calling me an informant, horrible, of the United States of America. And now after that, continuous death threats have continued. I went to Guatemala, and when I was in Guatemala, almost got killed in a mountain, documenting illegal migration in a mountain in Guatemala by 2 gang thugs. Also, my life has been threatened continuously in caravans, and also in the borders with Mexico and the United States by coyotes and traffickers. This is the life and death situations we face every day. And, we just recently had a meeting where several journalists, we discussed this, and several of them are receiving death threats and, horrible comments. Everything needs to be documented and needs to be pushed to the authorities. And everything right now, it is being well documented and being pushed to the authorities. We're trying to protect ourselves from another possibility of, basically losing our lives. This is a reality in Mexico. It's a reality which is happening. This is one of the reasons why I don't work continuously in the city of Tijuana. I travel a lot outside of the country. One of the reasons why is because of the level of insecurity and level of attacks. And it is a reality. This is a reality. A lot of people do not understand the level of consequence that all these, death threats, what they cost. And what they cost is a trickle effect and a domino effect for other people to take it seriously and to a point that they want to take away my life. And if that is the case, horrible. But this is the actual situation. Sadly, another journalist in the country of Mexico was assassinated, taking away his life from doing his work, line of work. And this has continued and continued and continued. Mexico is number 3 in the world for assassinations towards journalists. It's a place that it is extremely difficult to practice journalism. We are not allowed to wear press vest or a bulletproof vest, which, I used in Israel. I used in the lines of Gaza, a bulletproof vest, which for me, it was funny because I said, these are the things that we should use when we go to the borders. But in the part of Mexico, right, where the epicenter, where it happens, but we're not allowed to use them. And also in the lines of Lebanon, where they were, we had multiple attacks and missiles on Kiryat Shimona and also in the community of Jish and Malkia. Those are the places that we were using. I just used a bulletproof vest, but when it comes to over here, we're not allowed to use it, and it is incredible. So the only defense that we have against a brutal attack, it is a camera. And this is just sad to see and sad to say that, again, another of these attacks just happened in our country. And ultimately, another journalist's life has been lost. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm Oscar Blue for Real America's Voice News. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you so much for joining in. It is 10:57 in the morning. It is Tuesday, March 4th of the year 2025. Application to buy me a coffee. If you guys want to contribute to my independent reporting and travel fund, it is on top of the app. We're going to be traveling soon. Hopefully, we will be traveling soon to document, again, the current, massive and, activity of cartel and the organized crime, not around the country, around, the whole globe. God bless you all. Stay safe. And like we always say, God's plan, it is our mission. Thank you for joining.